Hi, welcome to another edition of Personal Transformation. Today we're going to be introduced to Dr. Joe Rubino. Dr. Joe Rubino is a highly acclaimed author, speaker, trainer, and coach. He is the author of 10 books and 2 audio programs on self-esteem, life change, business productivity, and he has tools and strategies to help with effective team building, leadership skills, communication skills, and he's also a life coach and optimal life planner. He's a best-selling author and his books and programs are available in 23 languages and in over 53 countries. Some of his books that he is known for are the Self-Esteem book, the Success Code, number 1 and 2, which are 29 principles for achieving maximum abundance, success, charisma, and personal empowerment. He also has fables. One of them is The Magic Lantern. Another one is The Legend of the Light Bearers, which is a fable about personal reinvention and global transformation. And by the way, Joe's Fable trilogy is about to come out on the big screen in movie form, which is very exciting. So Dr. Joe Rubino is the CEO of the Center for Personal Reinvention, which can be found at centerforpersonalreinvention.com, which is an organization committed to personal excellence and empowerment of all people. His work has impacted over 2 million people through self-esteem work and through personal and group coaching, personal leadership and development. His vision, which this is what I find personally inspiring about Joe, it's to positively affect the lives of 20 million people to become their best and to bring out more in them by raising their self-esteem and empowering them to be their best. So you can learn more about Dr. Joe Rubino by going to one of his 2 websites. One is drjoerubino.com and the other is selfesteemsystem.com. I bring you Dr. Joe Rubino.
Thank you very much and welcome. Today we're going to be speaking about the number 1 ingredient for success and happiness in life. And in case you're unclear at this point of what that is, it is soaring self-esteem. Let me start by sharing with you a little bit about my own story. I was a dentist by profession, trained in the arts and sciences, and practiced locally here in Melrose and in Lynn, Massachusetts for about 16 years. And although I had a very successful practice and was very successful by society standards, there was something missing for me. It had become more of a job than a passion. And in 1991, I was introduced to the concept of personal development, and something within me intuitively really resonated about seeing a fit there for my life, but I wasn't sure quite what it was. So long story short, I entered into a 1-year personal development program that turned into a 10-year program. And during those 10 years, I was coached and I learned to coach others. So fast forward now 19 years later, over the course of those 19 years, I've actually coached more than 1,000 different individuals. And during the course of those 19 years, what I noticed was there was one overriding factor. Whenever people weren't happy, whenever there was suffering or struggle, whenever people weren't abundant, they were living in scarcity mode, whenever their relationships were strained, whenever they were just not fulfilled and living their best lives, it always pointed to the same underlying factor. And that factor was low self-esteem. So over the course of my research and through my coaching experiences and the work that I've done in this arena, I've put together a 3-part program that I call the Self-Esteem System. And we're going to talk a little bit about the nature of self-esteem today, how it affects people's lives, how we can all elevate our self-esteem, and how we can actually live our best lives. Now, so what is self-esteem? By my definition, I should say, it has 5 components. The first component is personal power. And personal power is about producing a result with velocity. It's about noticing when you have an intention to manifest something in the world. It could be an income, it could be a rich relationship, it could be a project or a goal, and you can create that with velocity, meaning that you have the intention to make it manifest in the world, and you know what to do, or you have the ability to decide and to determine what resources you'll need to actually bring it about in the world. So personal power is the first component. The second component is about significance. And significance is about having the attention and the affection of other people. When we feel significant, we matter to people. And so those with high self-esteem necessarily have rich relationships. They matter to others, and others matter to them. So it's really important as a component to self-esteem to have all of these different elements in place, because if you're missing any of them, then there's something missing with respect to one aspect or more of your lives. The third component is virtue. And virtue is about worthiness. It's about how do we feel about ourselves? Do we feel as though we're a good person? Do we feel as though we're proud of our accomplishments and we are proud of the things that we do day by day? Or are we kind of ashamed of ourselves? Are we ashamed of the life that we're leading? Do we do things that dishonor our values or dishonor the values of others? So when we live a virtuous life, we feel good about what we do. We can sleep at night because we're proud of what we do. We're proud to be known for the qualities in the world that we're known for. In addition to personal power and significance and virtue, it's all about competence as well. Competence is about the ability to actually have the 6 areas of our lives that are the key areas and to produce the result that we want in those 6 areas. Now, those areas are our health and appearance, our wealth or our finances, our job or our profession or our business, our relationships, both within our family and outside of our family, our personal and spiritual development area, and the area of having fun and recreating and pursuing our passions. So if we were to rate each of those 6 areas, if we're at a 10, then we'd have high self-esteem in that area. If we're less than a 10, then there's something missing that, if put into place, would actually support us to increase our self-esteem in that area. And now we come to the 5th quality of self-esteem, which is a very critical quality, and it's one that most people miss. And that is about having an appreciation for what it's like in the world of the other person. It's about putting ourselves in the other guy's shoes or the other gal's shoes. And the reason why that's so critical is because without an appreciation, without an empathy for what it's like over there for the other person, it's all about us. So unlike what many people think self-esteem is, which is not just ego, self-esteem really must involve an appreciation for mutuality, about living in a world where you get along with others, where you source others, others source you, your relationships are rich, and life is really quite full that way. So when people say we're creating egomaniacs in our schools by focusing too much on self-esteem, if we're creating egomaniacs, it's not because they have high self-esteem, because by definition, those with high self-esteem have an appreciation for others and not just themselves. If they have an appreciation just for themselves, they have a high ego. So when we have all 5 of these areas, personal power, significance, virtue, competence, and an appreciation for others, we have an appreciation for developing high self-esteem in our lives. Now, why is high self-esteem important? It's important because of many reasons. But from a positive perspective, it's critical to have responsibility in our lives and make our lives work optimally. It's really essential for us to be abundant and happy and fulfilled. It's essential for us to have rich relationships and to be able to empower others and to have an appreciation for what it's like over there for them so that we can communicate effectively and we can be charismatic and effective in our relationships. And it's really critical because on the downside, those lacking self-esteem, they're typically involved in the violence that's all around us in the world. They're typically in the lower socioeconomic categories. They're involved with drug and alcohol abuse. They're involved with school dropouts. Everything from broken relationships to divorce to war on the other end is all sourced in low self-esteem. So when we can appreciate the fact that most of us have one or more areas that we can really develop to enhance our self-esteem, our research over the last 19 years shows that, conservatively speaking, at least 85% of the people walking on the face of our planet suffer from diminished self-esteem in at least one or more areas of life. So when you look at the state of our world out there, you'll see that less than 15% of the people really meet the definition in all 5 areas of having their lives together where they're actualized, they're fulfilled, they're not attached, they're in great relationships, they're not only abundant, but they're opulent. All of the things are working well for them. So what we're going to talk about is, okay, how can we get to the source of this, clear it up if it's bothering us as an issue, and then move on powerfully. So let's look at where low self-esteem has its origins. Typically, it starts early on in life, usually before the age of 6, but it can happen a few years after that. And one of 2 things will happen. Either we buy into someone else's negative opinion about us, or someone says or does something that has no negativity intended, but we make something up, or we create an interpretation that has some negative connotation that has us feel unworthy or unlovable or not good enough or defective in some way. And it doesn't matter if it's a negative comment, or maybe it's a racial slur, maybe it's a beating or a spanking, could be a bullying episode, could be an abusive situation, or it could be just a harmless phrase, because whether it was intended or not, we look upon ourselves from the standard of perfection, and somehow we don't measure up to that standard. So when we look around us in the world, we see people who are prettier than us, more handsome than we are. We see people who are more intelligent, wittier, more charismatic, people that have it more together than we do in one area or another. And we compare ourselves to these people, and we find that we don't measure up favorably. So we invalidate ourselves, we allow other people to invalidate us, and so we react from this in an emotional way to these assaults or these perceived assaults in a way that continues to damage our self-esteem. And it really creates a vicious cycle where when we decide that there's something wrong with us, we now look for opportunities to verify what that was, that thought that we're imperfect, we're unlovable, we're somehow not good enough. And so we scan for, and of course when we scan for, we will find evidence over the course of the years that tells us there's something wrong with us. So if we're 30, 40, 50 years old, we've encountered literally hundreds or more likely thousands or tens of thousands of different upsets in our lives that have continually deepened those lenses from which we view the world, that have deepened our belief that there's something wrong with us, our belief that we're somehow inadequate or imperfect or unlovable or defective in some significant way. So as we go through our lives, we're actually living the life based upon a decision that a 3 or a 5 or a 6-year-old made. So we wonder why we self-sabotage. We wonder why our lives aren't working optimally. We wonder why we don't attract people, why we're ineffective in our communication, why our charisma is not there, why our relationships are strained, why we're not attracting abundance into our lives. It's all because we make something up about ourselves early on, that we are this way. We make something up about other people. Other people are mean or cruel, perhaps. Maybe we're not good enough. Maybe we're defective. We're unlovable. And we make something up about the world in general. Maybe the world is a place of scarcity instead of abundance. Maybe the world is a place where people suffer and struggle and then die. So whatever it is that we make up doesn't support us. So we live our lives out of these interpretations that are actually misinterpretations. And when we don't manage those interpretations aggressively, as we go on in life, they get deeper. We continually reinforce them to the point where, before long, we're absolutely convinced that there's something wrong with us. There's no doubt in our mind. And it becomes invisible to us that we're living our life based upon the decisions that a little child made. And the longer we do that, the worse it gets. So the vicious cycle continues, and it gets reinforced constantly, day after day, not only by our interpretations that don't support us, but by the negative self-talker that sits on our shoulder and tells us, you're not that good, you're not that smart. Remember, people don't like you. You better not go to that party because remember what happened before? They made fun of you, they laughed at you, whatever that is. You know, remember, you're not good at math, so if you go into that job, they might ask you to do math, and if that happens, you're going to look like a fool. So we all have our own little version of that self-talker. And I like to encourage people to think of that self-talker as a voice outside of themselves, different from their intuition, because our intuition is always right on. It's always based in love. It's always based in our higher selves. And our self-talker is based in fear. The self-talker's job is to keep us safe and protected from all the perceived harm, the harsh world out there that we perceive it to be. Our intuition is always our sound guidance, and if we can learn to listen to our intuition, we'll see that it's never wrong. It always guides us in a way where when we listen to it, our lives work well. When we listen to our self-talker, we might be protected from risk because he or she is telling us, don't take those risks, protect yourself. Get that person before they get you. Whatever that little voice is saying, it's aimed at either protecting us or keeping us from harm. But there are many costs. It costs us our relationships. It costs us our ability to manifest abundance in the world. It costs us our potential to realize our gifts. It costs us our health. It costs us just about everything, including our lives, if we listen to that negative self-talker on our shoulder. Now, the negative self-talker has two jobs. One is to protect us from harm, and the other job is to have us prove that we're worthy. And so how does this manifest in the world? It manifests first by protecting us from harm, not risking. He or she tells us, don't take those chances, play it safe. So when we don't risk, we don't take the chances. It's like the old cliche, you miss all of the shots that you never take. If you don't take risks, you can't expand outside of what you know, outside of your comfort zone. So as a result of that, you play small. Just as I once played small, thinking that the only thing that I could do to earn a living in life was dentistry. And what I learned was that I made that up because of how I held myself at the time. And I could just as easily make up that I was creative and that I could be a contribution and I could inspire other people, even though I didn't once hold myself that way. So we all hold ourselves as either good in areas or having weaknesses, deficient in areas. And when we hold ourselves as small, we manifest this self-fulfilling prophecy that has us show up in life and has life show up for us in the same way that we hold it. So it's really important for us to manage that self-talk. The other way that the self-talker works is by having us constantly prove that we're good enough. So if your self-talker is telling you, I'll show you, you can prove that you're good enough, it's based upon a thought that you're not. And so no matter what you do, it's like running on a treadmill that keeps getting faster and faster, because no matter what you do, no matter how much money you earn, no matter how many awards you receive, no matter what promotions you get at your job, no matter how much recognition you receive out in the world, your self-talker will always invalidate what you've done. And when you invalidate yourself, you'll have a tendency to find the flaw in others. So you'll damage your relationships, you'll damage your communication, which will be ineffective, and as a result, you'll constantly be in that vicious cycle of never having fulfillment because no matter what you do is not good enough. So, how do we manage the self-talk? The first thing that we can do to manage the self-talk is actually just to recognize when he or she is talking to us. That's why it's important to distinguish our intuition from the voice of our self-talker. When we can hear that voice and we can tell our self-talker, thanks for sharing, now shut up, and we can replace the negative self-talk with some positive messages. So positive affirmations are important. Acknowledgments. You know, we're so good at invalidating ourselves, but we're not very good at acknowledging ourselves. And so people that invalidate themselves aren't very good at acknowledging others typically. So again, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy and it becomes a vicious cycle. The less that we acknowledge ourselves and the less that we acknowledge others, the more that we tear ourselves down and we tear others down, our relationships are strained, and before we know it, our communication is ineffective, and nothing works in life. We're not attracting with charisma the things that we really want to in life. We're attracting the things that we don't want. And as a result, when we look around us, we invalidate ourselves, and it becomes this vicious spiral that the more we don't get what we want, the more we don't believe in ourselves. And before we know it, it gets worse because we create that self-fulfilling vision for our lives. So, how do we manage the self-talk? There's a process and a tool that I like to teach people that in the course of 5 to 10 minutes, you can completely reinvent your life. You can completely get on the way to creating a new habit that within 30 days can transform your life. It can elevate your self-esteem. It can enhance your relationships. It can improve your communication. And so let's talk about what that tool is right now. I like to call that tool the scroll, because in one of my fables that, by the way, are currently in development to be feature films, kind of along the lines of Lord of the Rings or Avatar, this scroll was found in the ancient caves in the Forbidden Land, and the scroll had the secret to an upset-free life. So what does the scroll say? The scroll is about getting good at managing our interpretations, separating out what people say and do from what we make up about their words or their deeds. So when someone says something, we either can buy into their words or we can create an interpretation that supports us. Now, the reason why we typically don't create the interpretations that support us is because their words cause us to be emotionally reactive. When someone says something or does something, we typically go to anger for most of us. Some of us very quickly go to sadness or to fear. So if you can recognize right now what your predominant emotional mood is, the predominant emotional response to upsets, and the best way to do that is to start to keep what I call an upset journal. Every time you're upset, write down your upset. Write down what was said, what was done, what you made up about what was said or done, what you made up about yourself, what you made up about the other person, what you made up about the world in general. And then create another interpretation that has no upset around it. So the upset is the red flag flying before your face that tells you there's some mischief going on here in how you're seeing life. So let me talk a little bit about our emotional response to things, because this is the flag that when you can recognize the flag, you now have the ability to reinterpret life in a way that will support you. Most people, as I mentioned, are addicted to anger. If you look at the world today, you'll see that there's so much violence in the world. There's so much hatred and need for vengeance and retribution, and it's because we're addicted to anger. It's just like a heroin addict injecting heroin in his or her vein. That's how addictive the anger is. And so if your predominant mood is one of anger, you will scan for reasons to be angry. And to recognize this, all you have to do is look at the last time you were upset. If you're constantly getting into an upset with a spouse or with a coworker or with a friend, if you're constantly in that reactive, angry state, it's because you're addicted to creating interpretations that feed your anger. Now, those of you that are addicted to sadness, it's just as easy to have the anger go to sadness. For many of us, anger was unacceptable, so we become sad. Now, people who are addicted to sadness will scan for interpretations about life that make them sad. And that those interpretations actually cause a spiritual depression. There are something like 280 million people on this planet who could be categorized as spiritually depressed. And this is nothing more than an addiction to sadness. And it's because the interpretations that people who are addicted to sadness create make them sad, quote unquote, make them. No one can make us anything, but our interpretations can make us. And so the way that we can get out of the addictive behavior is by recognizing the interpretations that we're creating that make us sad and reinterpreting life in a way that has no sadness attached to it, if that's your addictive mood. Now, the third type of addictive emotional behavior is worry or fear. You know those people that worry about everything. They worry about a terrorist attack. They worry about the weather. They worry about a tsunami. They worry about losing their job. They worry about the economy. It doesn't matter what it is to worry about. They'll find some way to worry because, like the people that are addicted to anger or to sadness, these people scan for interpretations and situations and events that allow them to worry. So I invite you right now to take a minute and to really uncover what is your predominant emotional response. How do you react to life? Start to keep track of your upsets. Get a loose leaf or a spiral-bound notebook and start writing down every time you are upset in life to something. Write down what was said or done. What did you make up about yourself? What did you make up about other people? What did you make up about the world in general? Now, reinterpret the situation in a way that has no anger, sadness, or fear attached to it. Now, we all have all three of those emotions, but most of us have one of them with our name on it. Mine happens to be indignant anger. So when someone does something, the first thing that comes to mind is, how dare you? So someone cuts me off, how dare you? Don't you know how to drive? Someone smokes a cigar next to me, how dare you? Don't you know that secondhand smoke is no good for you? It doesn't matter what they do. I will scan for reasons to be indignantly angry. And if I don't manage my interpretations by thinking, okay, somebody cuts me off. Well, maybe they didn't mean to cut me off. Maybe they had an upsetting call and they're rushing home because maybe their child is ill. I don't know what it's like in their world. So I can just as easily create an interpretation that supports me, keeps me in relationship with the person, as I can one that makes me angry, makes me want to get revenge or hurt them in some way, get them back. So determine the flag that's flying in front of your face every day as a form of anger, sadness, or fear. Allow it to tell you that you're misinterpreting life in some way. Now go back and reinterpret life in a way that has no emotional charge to it. It's going to feel kind of strange because the emotion is addicting. We get to be powerful when we're angry. We feel as though we can control or dominate other people when we get that angry rush. When we're depressed or when we're sad, we're a victim. We feel sorry for ourselves. We elicit the sympathy or the pity of other people. You can't blame me, I'm depressed. People who are depressed give up their right to be responsible. So when people aren't responsible in life, you can't blame them. So there are some contrary benefits to being in these addictive moods. People that worry all the time, again, if you're worrying, it's not your fault. The world's full of danger. And you constantly are worrying or living in fear that something bad is going to happen to you. So the answer is responsibility. And responsibility is about being responsible, being at the source of manifesting the things that we all want in life. So when you can start to recognize your addictive emotional responses, when you can start to reinterpret life in a way that supports you, you give up your right to be a victim, you give up your right to be emotionally charged and to react to the world, and instead you start to be proactive in your interpretations. You start to have more charisma. You start to ask yourself, what is it like in that other person's world to have them say or do that in a way that we realize that 99% of an upset is about the other person or the person being upset, not about the person supposedly causing the upset. So we can now start to detach from the upset. We can now start to be not attached to what people say and do. And there's great freedom when we don't have to be attached to what people say and do. When people can't pull our strings or push our buttons, there's great emotional freedom there. And so I'd encourage you to map this tool onto your life, determine how it is that you're reacting to life that doesn't support you, and start to practice. In any case of an upset, interpret life in a way that has none of that emotional charge to it. Now, when you first start to do this, you're going to remember what you have to do as far as interpreting life a little too late. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And after you do it for 30 days, it becomes a habit. So I'm going to invite you to start to map that one onto your life now and start to manage your moods, start to reinterpret life in a way that really supports you. So let's look now at the three components to the self-esteem system. The first component is completing your past. The second is assessing your present. And the third is designing your future and choice. So let's start with completing your past. We all have interpretations that we made up as children that don't support us. And if we're running our lives from the interpretations of a little kid who decided that we're not good enough or unlovable or defective in some way, and that people are mean or cruel or whatever, and that there's scarcity in the world, or the world is a harsh and unforgiving place, then it doesn't support us to go forth and to constantly interpret life in that way. We actually now can interpret life in a way that supports us. So how do we do that? 3 keys to completing our past. The first is empathy. Empathy is about having an appreciation for what it's like in the other person's world. It's about having an appreciation for what is it like for them that they are doing what they're doing, that they're saying what they're saying. Because when we can realize that people do the best they know how to do, and it's not us that is provoking someone necessarily. It's they're doing what they're doing, and we just happen to be at the brunt of it. Now, that's very different from feeling as though people are doing things to us. So when we can have empathy for what it's like in the other person's world, we now have the ability to detach from their words or their deeds. We can detach from the things that they say or do and not take them personally. So we don't need to react, we don't need to get angry, we don't need to get sad or afraid. And there's great freedom with that empathy. The second quality is forgiveness. We walk around oftentimes not forgiving ourselves for being human. We decided something about ourselves early on in life, that we were defective, that we were somehow not good enough, that we were unlovable. And we were angry at ourselves for not being perfect. And so we have not forgiven ourselves oftentimes for being human, for making mistakes, for just doing the best that we know how to do. And when we don't forgive ourselves, we don't have the ability to forgive others. I like to think of forgiveness with the words, "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to learn and grow in empathy and in wisdom." And when we can forgive ourselves, we now have permission to forgive others. So it's about completion. When we can forgive, we can complete. And if we're incomplete with the past, it means that our energy is constantly going to the past, so that when someone said or did something to us, we haven't forgiven them, then we're not present in the future. So we are lacking that energy. It's kind of like having a leak in a balloon, where the balloon is going to be leaking and it's not going to be at its full potential because it's constantly giving out energy in a way because of what happened before. And it's the same with ourselves in this lack of forgiveness. So I'm going to invite you now to see if you can complete your past by having empathy and forgiving. Now, that's different than condoning bad behavior. People do what they do, and oftentimes the behavior is not kind or acceptable behavior. We're not condoning bad behavior, but what we're doing is we're saying that we can no longer have it rule our lives. We can no longer have their behavior push us to the point where we react to life. We can no longer be at the effect of something that happened to us years ago. The third quality is gratitude. When we look at life from the lenses of having gratitude, we make every day Thanksgiving Day. We actually get to be thankful for all of the blessings in our lives. And when we can look for blessings, we actually make them larger. We prepave good things coming our way when we start to look for the blessings in our lives and we start to make them manifest in our lives more. When we appreciate the good things, when we acknowledge ourselves for our good qualities, when we find ourselves doing something good every day, instead of invalidating ourselves for making a mistake, we now start to increase our self-esteem, we start to gain in confidence, we start to believe in ourselves, and belief in ourselves is critical for manifesting the things that we want. It's also critical for our relationships. When we can have gratitude for the gift that other people are to us, we now can start to forgive them for their mistakes. We can start to look upon their qualities where they're a contribution to us and start to minimize the things that they do wrong, the things that are their weaknesses or the faults that they might possess. So empathy, gratitude, and forgiveness, those are the keys to completing your past. Let's look now at assessing your present. Let's start by a conversation about values. Values are the threads that make up the fabric of who we are. And when we're honoring our values, life works. Our values are really the qualities that are who we are at our core. And when we're living our values, we're happy, we're fulfilled, we're empowered. And when our values are being dishonored, our communication shuts down. We're unhappy, we're angry, we feel as though we're dishonored. So values are many. They range from love and belonging and contribution and inspiration and freedom and joy, and there are so many. And when we can identify those values that are most important to us, especially the ones that aren't being honored or valued right now by us, we can start to ask ourselves, what do I need to do to manifest this value in the world? How can I start to honor the value that's not being honored so that I can live more happily, I can make my life work more optimally? In addition to values, gifts. Let's talk about gifts. We all have gifts, and many of us aren't using them fully because we're not aware of what our gifts are. Our gifts are the qualities that we're known for. They're the things that we do well, that some of them are what we're known for and we're already manifesting into the world. Some of them are latent. We don't know that we have these gifts. When I was first introduced to the concept of personal development, I didn't know that writing was a gift of mine. I hadn't written anything more than a college paper. I didn't think that I could inspire anyone. I was told that I couldn't lead 3 people in silent prayer. So not having the value of inspiration honored, not having the value of contribution fully honored, I wasn't honoring my value of creativity because I thought I wasn't very creative. And all of these were lies that I made up about myself that kept me small and stuck in suffering. So when I told the truth about what was important to me, and I started to look at how could I honor these values, I started to get in touch with the things that were more important to me and how I could start to manifest these gifts into the world. Commitments. Commitments are, let me start by saying that we're all committed to something. And for most of us, what we're committed to is our convenience. We're committed to the status quo. We're committed to not risking. We're committed to avoiding risk and avoiding problems because we hold it that problems are bad and the people with problems are to be avoided. So when we don't have the courage to risk problems, we don't have the courage to expand out of our comfort zone and actually welcome the gifts that are held within the problems. So as a result, we play small, we play safe, and we sacrifice our potential for the risk. And again, Chip, who I call the little gremlin on my shoulder, tells us, be careful because when you risk, you get hurt. So we have to recognize that voice, stifle the voice, replace the voice with an understanding that we will be fine, we will be well cared for, we have what it takes internally to go and manifest our gifts in the world, to develop those gifts, to honor our values, to be a contribution, to be abundant, to be happy, to have great relationships. When we avoid problems, we avoid the potential to grow. So I'd like to invite you now to start to embrace problems, start to welcome them, start to ask yourself, what is the gift that lies within each problem that I'm going to experience today, this week, this month? Because each problem has within it a gift that allows for a breakthrough. And the breakthrough is awaiting your discovery. It starts with an insight that something's possible that lies outside of what you know, outside of the box, the thinking that you're accustomed to, what you know and what you don't know. And so the gifts are in the realm of what we don't know. And so when you have the ability to risk and you have coaches, you have people that can give you support to explore some of these unknown areas, you can take those risks with a reserve, knowing that you're not betting at all. But what you're doing is you're taking little trips outside of your comfort zone to actually learn something, to grow, so that each time you do that, you're expanding the person that you are. You're expanding the possibilities in your life that you are for yourself and for other people. And really, it comes down to responsibility. Responsibility is really about taking a look at what is surrounding you in life and asking yourself the question, if I am responsible somehow for manifesting this, what can I do differently if what I'm manifesting in my life isn't to my liking? So responsibility is really about being responsible. It's about having the ability to manifest those things that empower us and move us forward. And not like it's blame or fault, which many people hold responsibility to be. Responsibility is a place to come from. It's a place to look, to empower us. It's like a jacket that we're trying on to see if it fits. It's not something to be stuck with. So when we're responsible, we're asking ourselves, who am I being that angry people are showing up around me? Who am I being that I'm alone, or that I'm not abundant, or that I'm living in scarcity, or that I'm constantly in an upset with people at work, or I'm constantly attracting sickness or illness into my life? And again, it's not blame or fault. It's a place to look. And when we can start to live out of a declaration of who we are, we're now getting into the third area of designing our future and choice. You know, those people with low self-esteem, which again is most of us, live out of discovery. They live out of the evidence. And they live out of life telling us what to do, as opposed to living out of a declaration. And here's the difference. If what is surrounding you, if what's showing up in your life, the people, maybe they're not loving, maybe they're angry, maybe they're combative, the level of abundance, maybe it's not to your liking, maybe you're living in scarcity, maybe you're trying to make ends meet and you're struggling there, maybe you're lacking in personal effectiveness, people aren't doing what you want them to do because maybe your focus is on yourself and not on contribution. So part of the possibility here is to actually start to live out of a declaration of who you are. And there's no evidence required in a declaration. It's because you say so. It's kind of like Babe Ruth when he would point the bat over the right field fence and he'd say, I'm going to hit it there. He didn't have any evidence to know that he was going to hit it there. He would declare it. And we can do the same thing in our lives. As a personal example, when I was just beginning the whole process, and I held myself as not very creative, not very inspirational, not able to do anything but dentistry, I declared that I was creative. I declared that I was inspirational. I declared that I was a contribution, even when I held myself prior to that as not being those qualities. And I would ask myself, okay, if I was inspirational, who could I inspire now? What could I say to this person? How could I inspire them? How could I make their day a little bit better? If I was a contributor, who could I contribute to? How could I make someone have their day a little bit easier? If I was creative, how could I create? What are my strengths? What are the areas that I need to develop to be strengths that are currently maybe held as weaknesses? So we actually make a declaration, we look at the qualities we want to step into, and then we have the courage to step into those qualities without needing the evidence to tell us that we are the quality that we want to develop. So it's really an existential act of courage that has us declare who we are, and then we step into that declaration and we start to manifest it. And a funny thing happens when we declare who we are and we start to step into that declaration, doors start to open, people start to show up in our lives, relationships start to appear, possibilities that now become opportunities start to happen, serendipity turns into opportunity that we wouldn't have noticed before. And it's all because we have the ability to now manifest something because we've declared that that's who we are. It's not fake it till you make it. It's this is who I am because I said so, and now if I'm going to be this way, what would I do if I declared myself to be about love? How would I demonstrate love in this example? How would I demonstrate contribution? Or how would I belong if I declare that I'm someone who belongs? How would I make someone's day a little bit better? So we get to step into whatever it is that we're declaring. Let's talk a little bit about vision. We all have a vision, and if what is showing up around us in our lives is not to our liking, that's our vision. We can create a new vision just as easily that empowers us, that has us move forward, that honors our values, that is a reflection of our gifts, that's actually consistent with what we've declared our life purpose to be. So the vision, it's about who we are at our core, those qualities that I mentioned. It's about the things that we'll do at a typical day at work and a typical day at play. It's about the things that we'll have in our lives. It's about the people that we'll contribute to. So doing, being, having, contribution. It's about if I had a magic wand and I could wave it over my life in 3 or 5 or 10 years, what would a film clip of my life look like? We can actually start to write this down, get clarity around it, because the mind can't distinguish a thought that is vividly imagined from reality. Chemically, it's the same. That's why we cry at sad movies and we're afraid at scary movies. It's because our body reacts emotionally to those things that are vividly imagined. And we can use that way that we're wired as human beings to support us to create new visions that support our lives. So when we actually have the ability to step into this vision out of a new declaration, we can declare the qualities that we want to be known for, we can write down in first person, present tense, a detailed vision of what our life will look like at some future point in time, as though we had that magic wand and we're watching a movie of our life unfold. So we talk about where we're living, with whom, who we surrounding ourselves with, maybe beautiful nature scenery, maybe great pets and companions. What are we doing for work? What would really make every day for the next 300 years be worthwhile? So we're talking now about life purpose. And you know, if you're going to wait for the skies to open and someone to come down to tell you, okay, Jennifer, your life purpose is this, it's not going to happen. Life purpose is a declaration that we make. And it's a declaration that here is what I'm going to use my life for. And it doesn't have to be something extraordinarily complicated. It can be something as simple as I'm going to be a demonstration of love, or I'm going to devote myself to humor, to making people laugh, or I'm going to be an advocate for women, or an advocate for pets, or an advocate for the poor, or I'm going to be a great friend. Whatever it is that would make your life so rewarding that you can't wait to do it forever, that is the sort of thing that will really ring true for you as far as your life purpose. So when your vision is a function of your life purpose and you believe that it's going to manifest, it actually you will be self-motivated to create whatever it is to manifest that vision. It's because the way that we're structured is kind of like a thermostat. When we have an expectation that our life will be better, the thermostat creates self-motivation, and we're empowered to actually go in the direction to do those things that we see as inevitable. And the same happens when we fear that our life is going to be worse, when we think that we're not going to be abundant, when we think that we're not going to have rich relationships, when we think that we're not going to be happy or fulfilled. Then we self-sabotage, and we get to be right about it. We get to actually feel sorry for ourselves. We get to say, I told you so. So we either manifest the good things when we expect them that are in alignment with that expectation because we're self-motivated to be in action around those things, and we get to sabotage ourselves when we expect bad things to happen. And there's a middle ground there too, and it's called apathy and resignation. And that's where I lived for a number of years, thinking that this is the lot I was given in life. This is just the way life is. This is the way I am. I'm not very creative. I'm not very charismatic. I'm not very inspirational. And so I have to do what I have to do for the rest of my life to earn a living for my family. And all of those were lies because I was in that apathy zone, expecting more of what I always had because I was basing my life on evidence as opposed to a declaration of what was possible if I believed in myself. And it's the same for every one of you. You all have the ability to create magnificent things in your life if you have the courage to envision them first and then step into that vision by declaring who you are and living that declaration, having the courage to actually reinvent yourself on a daily basis. Now, when our goals are in alignment with our vision and our actions are in alignment with our goals, we start to manifest. That's how the manifestation process works. It starts with baby steps, and the key to it is action. It doesn't have to be massive action initially. Baby steps can be a great way to start, but action is critical. It's kind of like a friend of mine uses the example of a heat-seeking missile. When that missile is shot off from an airplane, initially it's not on target, but the computer on the missile measures and adjusts, and it constantly hones in on its target, and before you know it, it hits its target. And we are the same way. It's better to take some action because just the courageous act of stepping into action, taking some positive movement in the direction of our vision, will cause doors to open, will cause people to come into our lives. The universe, God, however you want to hold that, moves to accommodate your belief in yourself and your ability to actually manifest things in the world. And you either can stay stuck, feeling sorry for yourself, be in resignation, be in apathy, and think that this is just the way it is, or you can have the courageous ability to take some action and know that every step you take, you measure, adjust, reevaluate to see if you're on track, and eventually you will be. New opportunities will happen, new doors will open. You'll actually start to create a new possibility for yourself as you take daily action. And again, it's all in alignment with our expectations. If we don't expect to be successful, if we don't expect to be abundant, if we don't expect to have rich relationships, if we don't expect to be happy, we will find a way to sabotage ourselves and then be right about it. Feel sorry for ourselves, evoke the sympathy and the pity of other people, and then get in that downward spiral. And before you know it, it looks like it's so true. So the bottom line is that we have the ability to really manifest great things in our life. So what are some of the support structures that we can be supported by? One is coaching. You wouldn't have an Olympic athlete be caught without a great coach. Coaching allows us to access the areas that we're all blind to, the areas that we don't know about ourselves, the areas that we just don't know that we're not seeing. It's kind of like having bad breath and you're the only one in the room that doesn't know that you have bad breath. A coach supports us to actually get into what we don't know about ourselves and have those insights that can lead to breakthroughs in our lives. An accountability group is another great tool. An accountability group is a group of 2 or 3 or 4 people that get together and support you in doing what you say you're going to do. So if you have a project to reinvent yourself, and let's say that you're going to manage your communication, you're going to stop reacting angrily. Let's say that that's your goal. So you're going to track every time that you react, and you're going to separate out your interpretations and create new interpretations, and you're going to manage your response so that you start to reinvent yourself in that arena. Now, when you do that, you're going to report your results. An accountability group is like a group of coaches that tell you, give you feedback around what they see, and they support you to put into place the elements that are missing that, if put into place, will have you be on track to achieve your goals. A mastermind group is a similar type of group where you get together with other people and you brainstorm possibilities. You empower each other. You say, well, what about this? What do you see here? You ask questions of each other. So there's lots of different support structures, and in the self-esteem system, we give you structures to do all 3 of these behaviors. Complete your past, assess your present, design your future. I'd like to offer you all a free gift right now, and if you go to our website, which is www.selfesteemsystem.com, there's a 45-minute audio that is entitled 7 Steps to Soaring Self-Esteem, and it comes with 7 mini-course lessons. They're all free, and they're a thank you for just checking out the work that we do at the Self-Esteem System. So pick up your free gifts. If any of this kind of struck a chord with you, if any of it sounded like it has potential to impact your life, I invite you to pick up the free gifts to check out how it might impact your life. If you're interested in learning more about our coaching program at the Center for Personal Reinvention, you can find out information by going to www.drjoerubino.com, drjoerubino.com, drjoerubino.com, and that will take you to our Center for Personal Reinvention site. And there you can click on a tab where you can learn a little bit about our coaching program, and you can learn about how we can empower your life. So I'd like to leave you all with a challenge. And that is, you remember that magic wand that I referred to a little while ago? Well, we all have one. We were all given one at birth, actually, and most of us forgot that we had one, where we could wave it over our lives. We could actually manifest we can manifest our ideal life. We can manifest our dream life. We can have the rich relationships. We can have the abundance. We can have the opulence, not just the abundance. We can be empowered. We can live our life purpose. We can live with passion as opposed to living with resignation. But what it's going to start with is the courage to have the commitment to take some action. So if you are at all in that resigned state, if your life is not a 12 on a scale from 1 to 10, then I'd invite you to take some action, because apathy and resignation need not rule your life. Suffering is about having something you don't want or wanting something you don't have, and it's always optional. So if you're suffering at all, it means that you're not taking responsibility for making your life work optimally. So I'd encourage you to declare who you are today. Take some direction in the direction of your declaration. Live with passion and know that you have what it takes to move your life forward. Thank you for your attention and for listening. God bless, and I wish you high self-esteem.